Welcome back. All right, so as we continue through this really, really difficult story that continues to develop, there's a lot of, I think, there's a desire to see the justice now, immediately, and that's not usually how that works. There is like a set process for everything, and that includes this, as objectionable as it is. First off, Dave Hodge is right about something this morning that he states that the Sportsnet and some in the media completely disregarded Rick Westhead's reporting on the Chicago Blackhawks story until now, and that it wasn't necessarily all that surprising. I know on this channel I've reported on when the concussion lawsuit was going through, which was also Rick Westhead reporting on that. The NHL to this day does not believe that repeated concussions during hockey games causes CTE. That is still the league's official position. That, well, yeah, that's a brain injury, but you don't get that from repeated concussions. There's no proof, even though the NFL has admitted there's proof. And they've started paying players. Now, on the NFL side of it, sometimes it gets kind of dicey about who they pay and how much they pay. But they've admitted there's a link. The NHL doesn't. The NHL's always had this really odd relationship when it comes to protecting its players. And so I'm not entirely surprised at how all of this Chicago story took place. Chicago tried to bury it. And I've been reporting on this since Rick Westhead started reporting on it. Over the summer, I know there were like little tidbits here and there, but it felt more like hearsay, so I wanted to wait then until we got the final report. So, of course, I went through the final report, too, which, if you haven't read it, it's kind of nauseating to go through. And it is very difficult to kind of digest all of that and realize that happened. I will say this, though. There is more fallout coming. It's just a matter of doing it in the proper manner. There is a proper manner to doing this. So I'm going to jump around the board a little bit here because I write all this stuff down as I find this and then I report on it here. But in this case, it's a little different than your normal news video. So Coach Q, Quenneville, will meet with Bettman today. There's a lot of people who are mad at the Panthers. I know. I saw it, all the comments on my review last night. Here's the problem. Do you know if the Panthers can fire somebody for something they did 11 years ago with another organization? Because it is quite possible they can't. If you follow the NFL, there was some speculation that the Las Vegas Raiders could not fire John Gruden for emails that were sent when he was with another organization. So he resigned. So they may not be able to fire him without having him then file a wrongful dismissal lawsuit, which could cost them a ton of money. And then they got to pay for a new coach to come in as well. So that's where this gets really dicey. That's where this isn't quite that simple of just fire everybody. Not that easy because of the amount of time that's gone on. Kevin Cheveldayoff's meeting with Bettman on Monday. The Jets may not be in a position to do anything either because of the same thing. It happened when he was in Chicago. It happened 11 years ago. And in Cheveldayoff's case, I don't know that anything's going to happen. If you go through the entire document, Cheveldayoff clearly assistant GM, lowest rung on the ladder in terms of who was in that big meeting on May 23rd of 2010. And so he may not end up facing anything. Quenneville may, especially because obviously this leaked out to the players. And now we've got that battle between players saying we didn't know and other players saying we did. And so as fans, we're kind of left to say, okay, do we trust these players or do we trust these players? And I don't know that we're going to get an answer. I know a lot of people are mad at Duncan Keith, right? And yet Duncan Keith's name isn't even mentioned in the entire file. The entire 107 page, never mentioned. So, again, it's easy for everybody to grab the pitchforks and say, that's it, let's just, burn it all down. But I think that the NHL's trying to do this the proper way. Kyle Beach having the courage to step forward says a lot, because I've also seen a lot of comments about, well, he's a man, and that can't happen when you're a man, which is, it reminds me of a conversation I had with a girl I was friends with almost 30 years ago, where she basically said, well, you can't do that to a woman unless she at some point has to get, what? So yeah, that was an interesting discussion, and again, that opinion is out there, and it's no, it's just no. Don Fear has apologized for the NHLPA's role. This goes a lot further than I think people realize. People are like, well, let's get rid of Coach Quenneville, and then Cheveldayoff can go, and then all the Blackhawks, and there we go. The NHLPA did this one wrong. The Kyle Beach reported this, and the NHLPA kind of went, nah. So Kyle Beach never played an NHL game, and it leads you to think maybe that had something to do with it, or maybe they just didn't really think it was a big deal. Maybe they heard the details and went, this is all salacious and we want nothing to do with it. But Don Fear has come forward and said, yeah, we handled it wrong. My the one big takeaway I have from this too is, Kyle Beach is brave for stepping forward. I I hope he's the only one this has ever happened to. I have a feeling he's probably not. So that's where this becomes a bit of a slippery slope. I've there's always been the rounds of gossip around the NHL, and I think if I had a dime for every time I've heard something really awful about like a star player in the NHL, yeah, so again we go down that rabbit hole, right? And stuff that 20, 30 years ago we looked at and went, now fans won't do that. So stuff that 20, 30 years ago, especially if it's something domestic, if it's something that happened at home, we kind of went, well, he's good on the ice though. So yeah, and that was kind of an accepted way of treating it, and that's no longer the case. So that has definitely changed. And so I'm wondering, at what point do people start going back into the histories of some guys who might be in the Hall of Fame, some guys who have been revered, and say, wait a minute, why are they revering this player? Look what happened here. There's this whole police report. So I really think what we're seeing here is maybe the start of a change, and the way that people think about certain things. So it was nice of Don Fear to come out and apologize to Kyle Beach. The NHL has sent a memo to all clubs today about inclusion and safety and respect for all, which to me it kind of feels like they're covering for themselves a little bit. So the memo always seems to come out, when something happens, and you're like, oh, this memo's nice, but so we'll see how seriously they take it, because now it's a matter of, so this happened. You know what happened. How do you make sure this can't happen again? So the next time there's a situation where an assistant coach, where equipment, whoever, right, where they step out of line, an employee steps out of line, a hockey player steps out of line, a 50-goal scorer steps out of line, that there will be something in place to make sure that the proper channels are there for other people who are affected, whether they're in the NHL or not. See, so this is where everything's going to be different at some point soon. And again, it is not just as easy as, well, I hate Florida because they haven't fired Quenneville yet. Okay, well, I have some bad news then, because over the entire time I've followed hockey, almost every team in the league, there's been something that I've said, wow, they could have handled that differently. And it's usually regards to player conduct stuff that we would see in the news that, again, kind of at the time was pushed aside, or it was, well, boys will be boys, was sometimes the attitude as well, and I think that's changing. So with all of that set aside, let us also discuss other events from around the hockey world that are taking place, because this is in the middle of the season. This is all going on as well. I think this this is the other part of it too. I think this would have probably been preferably fixed in the off season, where this investigation was completed, the results came out in early August, and then everything would have been settled before the season. I think the fact this is dropped right in, near the start of the season just makes it all the more difficult, right? And so we're looking for those immediate results where there really isn't going to be any. So, all right. The injury news from around the National Hockey League today. Jeff Carter's expected to be back for tomorrow, not for tonight, but for tomorrow. Mike Sullivan is pretty sure he'll be back for tomorrow. He's got his fingers crossed on that. Carter apparently not having symptoms or anything, just that he tested positive. Whereas Chris Letang, it could be a while longer because he's had symptoms. A lot of players haven't. Some have. So the plan is, I do believe that on the 1st of this month, they're going to change this a little bit so that if they don't have symptoms, they won't be tested, and if they have symptoms, they will be. I think that's the plan at that point. And then, yeah, we'll see how everything goes there. But yeah, so hopefully Letang gets better soon, and Carter should be back in the lineup tomorrow, is apparently the statement. And for Crosby, it's still, we don't know. It's whenever. Drew Doughty is going to be out 8 weeks with the knee injury he suffered the other night, so that's a tough blow for the LA Kings. Doughty was off to a very good start to the season and trying to prove that he should be on the Canadian Olympic team, and this probably sinks his dreams of being on the Canadian Olympic team. So I do feel bad for him on that level because, yeah, I mean, he's represented his country before and he wanted to represent it again. And now there's not a really strong likelihood of that taking place. So hopefully when he gets back, he can pick up where he left off and look like the Drew Doughty of old and all that. On the protocol news, Wheeler is returning to the Winnipeg lineup, and so he's out of protocol. Scheifele isn't out of protocol yet. That could change between now and game time tonight, of course, as we saw last night with Jonathan Toews being cleared to play last night for Chicago. So, yeah. We'll see how all of this shakes down. But thank you guys so much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.